What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the farm. We got an exciting one here for you tonight. We're gonna change it up a little bit, and we are actually working in collaboration with a couple other farms here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna actually share a bunch of tips, tricks, techniques, areas of focus as we get ready for winter here on the homestead. We're working with Kyle, also known as the Backwoods Butcher and host of the Meat Critters podcast, which will be on later tonight. Working with Joe from Blakesley Acres and Cruz from B Mills Farm. Really the goal of this whole thing is to get as much information out about winter preparation here on the farm for you guys. I'll be sure to drop the others' links in our description below. You guys definitely encourage you to check them out. They're gonna have some things that I'm of course gonna forget. Hopefully I can learn some things from them as well. And that's really the point of this, is to all join together as a community, help each other out, and also help you guys out there as well. So really excited for this one. Again, we'll be on Kyle's show later on, and we'll discuss it a little bit more in depth. So I put together 5 things that we're gonna share with you today, 5 things that we're really looking at as we get into winter here. But first, I wanted to talk about a quick overview on where we're at overwintering our animals. Unlike most people who are gonna try to thin their flocks, thin their herds of whatever animals they have, we're actually kind of going the other way right now. We do have plans on butchering some of these guys behind us, some of our pigs. We're at 7 right now, and I'm hoping after Christmas, we actually take it down to 2, just our boar and our sow behind us. But we're also expecting piglets, I believe, so we'll be right back to square one there. From our sheep standpoint, we are at 6 right now. Potential for some winter lambs. Not too concerned about that, but again, we're not gonna go down, so we're gonna have to overwinter a lot of animals here. You know, chickens, they are what they are behind us. They're pretty easy, they're pretty hardy, and they have a coop to go in. So not too concerned about all our chickens here. As you can see, they're scurrying around, but needless to say, we're definitely gonna have to focus on overwintering animals here. So priority number 1, and hopefully it's everybody's priority as the winter gets colder and the conditions become harsh, it's all about keeping your animals alive here on the farm. So for us, that means food and water. So we'll start with our sheep, and the plan here is to actually keep them out on grass as long as we possibly can. We got a lot of good pasture left, so as long as we don't get some early snow, they should be able to graze away on this for quite some time before we're really thinking about another source of feed. Now, when we do get snow, you know, there's definitely some options. We actually cut a bunch of hay this summer and put up in our barn across the farm. We don't have your conventional hay balers and equipment like that, so it's all loose. But we do have a pretty good amount in there. Should definitely get us by for at least a few weeks. And again, hopefully we don't have that long-lasting snow on the ground here. The sheep, again, they're very hardy. You know, they're gonna go for some stuff that, you know, your traditional ruminants aren't gonna get it during the winter. So they can kind of remain on the pasture a little bit longer than a lot of other animals. Worst case scenario, we go out and we buy some hay. We definitely have some farms around here where we can do that. And if that doesn't work, you know, we can always resort back to some conventional feed. You know, I used a lot of alfalfa pellets last year. It's always, you know, kind of that last resort option for us. And we had no issues last year. So if it comes to that, again, it's going to be added cost, but we can definitely keep our sheep alive. And that, of course, is the top priority. The rest of our animals are going to be pretty straightforward. Our pigs, they're going to get their typical conventional feed. They're going to get the table scraps that we're giving them already. They're not going to have as much forage, so we might have to up their feed amount anyway, but that's already a given as they continue to grow here for us. So the pigs should be fine as far as feed. Chickens, again, very easy. We'll feed them in the coop there and no concerns. Same with our ducks once we get the duck house built. So we got our feed situation pretty dialed in. What's going on, Bucky? We got our feed situation pretty dialed in. Our big concern is going to be water. Right now, we're using a ram pump. You guys have seen that before on our channel. And it's really effective in the summer. It gets water pretty far out here to our pasture, and then we're able to tap it into the stock tanks or whatever we're going to use to water them. Over the winter, that thing is going to freeze up. I'm going to let it run as long as it possibly can, but you're going to end up seeing a glob of ice on that over time. So we're going to have to come up with another solution. Typically, it results in me walking around with 5-gallon buckets in each arm, which is a real pain. So I'm hoping the other guys have some solutions, and that's why we're doing this, so we can all kind of team together everybody can kind of work as one and come up with ideas for everyone else. So our second point of focus, and this one's not going to apply to everybody, but I'd be willing to bet it's going to happen here on our farm. And that's the chances that we're going to have newborns here on the farm this winter. So if you're planning properly, you're probably not going to run into this, but in our situation, we definitely are. So Betsy, our sow back here, I'm almost certain she's going to have piglets here in the coming weeks. So with that, you're going to have to plan appropriate shelter and bedding, so those piglets are going to make it out alive over the cold winter, the wet conditions, the snow, and so forth. You can see we have a shelter back here, so that's plenty, but we're going to have to make sure that there's always bedding in there. Pigs tend to kind of nest in there. And you also have to make sure that your shelter is going to be large enough. If we have 7 pigs trying to cram in a shelter with a litter of piglets, that's probably not going to work out well. So we actually do have a second shelter down throughout this little patch of woods, which should be more than enough. In the event that she does have piglets, we're obviously going to have to monitor them at all times. So we'll adjust with the situation. If we think that they need extra space and we need to separate them, we'll definitely do so to keep them alive. But having piglets over the winter, it's probably not going to be as easy as with our sheep. Now, we do also think our sheep might have a lamb within the coming months as well. They're pretty hardy. Our first lamb here actually on the farm was in the middle of January, and we had no issues. Again, we do have an extra shelter if we need it, but I've found that sheep don't even really use their shelter. Again, it's really going to come down to monitoring them every day, especially as they're really showing signs. She's starting to show signs. I know I'm showing a pig, but it's the same thing. She's starting to show signs. Same with the sheep. As they show signs, and they're going to show signs much later on, you really have to make sure you're watching them. Unfortunately, we did have a loss because we weren't able to do that, and it's something that I'm not really willing to go through again. So we're going to be over here all the time as that develops and making sure that they're going to have what they need to survive this winter. All right, so our third point here, getting ready for winter. And this could arguably be number one if you didn't have animals, but we have to make sure our animals, old and new, are staying alive. So we're going to talk about having a source of backup power. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate in your location out there, and you're a little bit off the beaten path, and we lose power, let me tell you, a lot right here. We are one of 6 houses on our line. So when the power goes out, it's certainly not a priority, meaning that we're going to be out of power for several hours on almost every occasion. And that's the way it works here. So we lose power probably once a month. If not, then it's going to be at least once every other month, more than we like for sure. But I guess that's a trade-off that we have for living where we do. So backup power is going to be huge for you. Get yourself a generator if you don't have one. It's going to save you. The first winter we were in here, we were not able to power our furnace. And we definitely have a story we could tell another day about our first Christmas, my daughter's first Christmas for that matter. She was a month old and we don't have heat. And that was an adventure for sure. So we quickly adjusted. We already had the generator, but in most instances, your furnaces are going to be hardwired. So we actually went forward. We put in a whole house transfer switch. Now our 4,500 watt generator is not going to power our whole house, but it's definitely going to power the essentials to be able to keep our heat running, our water running, and so forth. A couple lights. So it does definitely add comfort and definitely a little bit of luxury to your life there. Just have to start the generator, flip the switch, and you're going to be good to go. So definitely would recommend that if you don't have it. At the very least, get a generator, run some extension cords. It's going to be a savior for you. It's going to maybe keep your pipes from freezing up, which is going to be a catastrophe. It's going to obviously keep you comfortable. If you have kids, it's going to make them feel a little bit more safe than the situation presents itself. We'd also recommend some sort of backup heating as well. We went ahead, we actually put in a propane fireplace in our living room, which takes very little electricity to run the blower. It'll actually run without the blower as well, so we're okay there. Hindsight, I would have put a different fuel source in than propane, just to have an alternative fuel source as well, maybe either a wood insert or a pellet insert. But we feel good about having that backup. And then we also have a couple electric space heaters as well. I'm telling you, unless you've experienced it, you probably can't appreciate how much of a savior that type of stuff is when you lose power. Because if you've experienced a house at like 45 degrees, you're definitely not going to want to experience that again. So go ahead, get yourself some backup power and you'll be good to go for your winter. Now our next point, and this is pretty fitting, I feel like, because I'm starting to move now. It's already getting dark. And it's going to be exactly that. It's going to be darkness. So it kind of goes along with a loss of power. But the days also are getting shorter. So you still got all that work to do. You still got all the chores, all the feeding, all the repairs, just in less time now and in worse conditions. So to plan for that, I always recommend prioritize your larger projects. Get that stuff done on the weekend if you're working your 9 to 5, weekday job. But definitely knock those out when there's daylight. And when it comes to feeding, you're just gonna have to face the reality. You're gonna have to feed in the dark. I would say most nights, a lot of times, especially again, if you're working a job, a lot of times you're gonna leave for work, it's gonna be dark, and you're gonna get home and it's gonna be dark. You still have animals that need to be fed. So I rely on this headlamp right here. At this time of year, I have it with me all the time, because if I'm out here right now and it's getting dark, strap this thing to my hat, we're good to go. Definitely get yourself a headlamp. Look into, additional lighting, whether it's a spotlight. We have a large spotlight as well that I'll also carry around. It's just harder, when you're handling buckets and water lines, things like that. It's a lot more difficult to flash that light around. And of course, always have backups. Don't just have one headlamp, one flashlight. Have multiple in multiple locations. Again, if you're inside, be able to access them if your power goes out unexpectedly. If you're outside, or if you have to go outside, say you lost one, now you at least have a backup that you can go to and still get the job done, and not go around with your little phone flashlight, which you're not going to be able to see more than a foot in front of you. So flashlights, headlamps, whatever it is, spotlights, it's going to make your life a lot easier when it gets dark. And then our point number 5, and really I could probably go on 20 points easily, just off the top of my head, but we got to stop somewhere. So point number 5 is going to be your infrastructure. Now that can obviously be a pretty broad topic there. So really what I'm talking about with infrastructure is stuff is going to break over the winter. You're going to have things freeze. We have a lot of white ash here, which have been killed off by the ash borers. So we always have, branches coming down, again, causing power outages for us. So again, they cause power outages for us, but they're also going to break things. We have a lot of high tensile running out, a lot of this woven wire. You get a good tree branch and that stuff's coming down, meaning your animals are going to get out, which obviously in the middle of winter, those dark, cold nights, last thing you want to do is track down a bunch of sheep who are constantly on the move, or, if you have cows, it's going to be a real job to get them back in the fence. And with that, not only fencing, other things actually break as well. You're going to have water lines. If you have water lines run out to your pasture, you're going to have things freeze. You're going to have pipes crack and so forth. So there's always repairs that need to be made. So I think it's really important that you do prioritize that. And then you at least think about having some supplies on hand for those quick fixes. Cold weather also poses challenges with electric fence chargers. Your batteries, they're not going to be as efficient in the cold weather. You're going to have to always keep a check on them. If you lose your charge in your fence, you run the risk of losing your animals yet again. And then the last thing is predators. So around here in Pennsylvania, we have coyotes, and I hear them every night already. The colder weather definitely brings on more activity from the coyotes. So we're going to have the trail cams out, of course. We're going to make sure we're monitoring that. As snow falls, it's kind of easy to check for tracks around the fencing. I haven't seen anything to this point, but that's not saying they can't come in. We hear them, like I said, all the time. And obviously as it gets colder, a lot of the other animals out there, they're not going to have, as much food as well. So they're going to be on the prowl. They're going to be looking for an easy meal. A sheep would be a very easy meal for a coyote. So we just got to be vigilant. We got to stay vigilant, make sure our fences stay intact. And again, infrastructure, so important, keeping the predators out over winter. We do have bobcats here. I don't really see them as much of a threat. I guess they could be if the situation gets bad enough for them, but it's mainly going to be coyotes here. Obviously, depending on what area you're in, you might have some different challenges. So that's it, guys. That's our top 5 areas of focus. And I say top 5 because, again, we could go on and on about this stuff. There's plenty of other things that I'm sure I left out. And like I said in the beginning, hopefully the other farms hit on some things that I either missed or left out there as well. And while it can certainly be challenging out here on the farm, there's definitely some benefits to the colder weather. And we definitely can use that time to get some good planning done for next season. We're looking to get a couple things done over the winter when the weather gets a little colder that you just can't get done in the summer as well. So we're gonna look to get our new pasture in across the farm over on our east side, roughly about 4 or 5 acres there. So we're gonna get in with the chainsaw as the green kind of comes off the trees, all the leaves fall. It's gonna be a lot easier to get in there and actually cut some trees out and cut a true fence line. So we're gonna knock that out this winter. If we can start the fence, if the ground is soft enough, we'll definitely start the fence. But at the very least, we'll have that ready to go for first thing next spring. We're also gonna look to get a lot of cleanup done. It's a great time to clean up on your farm. You know, pigs make a mess, so they definitely trashed their area. They trashed our old garden. They knocked fence posts down. We'll get in there, we'll clean up all that stuff, get it thrown out. That way we start fresh next year. And then we're also gonna look to plant our garden. So if you guys haven't seen, our garden was not a success this year by any stretch of the imagination. Certainly neglected that, just focusing more on our livestock expansion here. So we're gonna get in the garden. We're gonna start planting here as soon as the weather turns. And then, you know, before you know it, the new year hits and you're starting seeds already here in Pennsylvania. You know, you're gonna start with your onions probably in late January. And then typically around Valentine's Day, you're getting your peppers, you're getting your tomatoes started indoors. So that time comes a lot quicker than you know it. So you always gotta have a plan and a course of action there. And I'll leave you this in conclusion today. The first order of business is maintain your farm and keep your animals alive, keep your family warm, and you're gonna be okay. You know, try not to stress too much about the days being shorter. I'm a terrible example of that as I'm trying to cram things in. But in all reality, those shorter days can provide extra rest for you. You know, it's go, go, go out here all year round. So take a couple seconds of extra rest, because as soon as spring hits, that list is going to be literally from head to toe of what you need to knock out. As the days get longer, you're going to add more to your list, and you're going to be going crazy again before you know it. So take the rest, enjoy your time around when the holidays hit. I always think that's such a great time of year. Now, granted, I mean, I did grow up on a Christmas tree farm, so we always have that going here. But in all reality, you know, the holidays are a great time to just kind of decompress, take some time off. It's going to be okay. Keep your animals alive, do the bare minimum for a couple days, and you're going to be okay. And the last thing I'll mention is simply just be prepared. Don't assume your winter is going to be light. You guys out there from Texas, you guys know what it's like from a couple years ago with that deep freeze that you experienced. You know, the other farms that I mentioned in the beginning that we're working together with right now, they're further north than we are. You guys know what it's like to have a harsh winter. So assume the worst, assume you're gonna get a ton of snow, assume you're gonna have winds and power outages. And as long as you prepare for that, it really can't get much worse, right? You're gonna be ready to go. You're gonna tackle anything that comes your way. You're gonna keep your animals alive. You're gonna keep your family safe. And that's what's most important out here on the farm. So thank you guys for watching this one. Really excited to have worked with the other farms on it. And we're excited to get on Kyle's show later on tonight. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely tune in. We'll be live later on tonight, and we are looking forward to continuing the discussion. So like I said, we could definitely go a lot deeper than what we hit on tonight, but I wanted to get you the basic 5 areas of our focus. You know, the other guys are gonna kick off a bunch as well. So all together, hopefully you get a ton of knowledge out there as we prepare for winter. So wherever you're at, guys, enjoy the rest of the fall as you have it. It's still 75 degrees here in Pennsylvania. It's beautiful tonight, but that weather, our forecast is changing very quickly. We have some future lows here in the 30s overnight, and that is something that I'm not looking forward to. But we'll get through it. Again, guys, thanks for watching. If you like what we're doing, give us a good old thumbs up. Pound that subscribe button. We appreciate your support there. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, guys.